are, people. The PMG is on, spinning quite nicely. It's got no force on it. It's now doing about 500 RPM and it's dishing out 42 volts. And I've got it on the delta configuration. I've joined the start to the finish and I've got a delta to give me low volts, high amps, because I've got a 2452 grid inverter, so I can run this between 24 volts and 52. Now we're running at 42 volts at 450 RPM. Okay, the 15k resistors are using 1 amp at 226 volts on 15k, and here we have nearly 2 amps on 12k resistors at 222 volts. So the 12k has got to go. We're putting on 18k soon, but we do have a problem here, because here we have 42 volts. It's on the parameters of the grid inverter, but watch when I switch it on. It starts to make power, and when you put a load on it, there you go. Now it's shot it to the 25 volt mark, because what I think is happening, the grid inverter starting at 24 volts, it's coming and going and coming and going, so therefore the RPM is now dropped We're now on 300 RPM. So from 450, it's dropped it. It's staying at 25 volts, which is the border with the grid inverter, and it's making 6 watts. That's a load of fucking use, isn't it? 6 watts. This grid inverter is giving me 6 watts, and I'm using 500 watts to run the motor. Now that, to me, is fucking useless. Whether we need to up the RPM on the wheel, we need to get it right up to 1000 RPM, I think. But the load, this dynamo, this alternate permanent magnet low drag generator, it sensed that the grid inverter needs some power, and it's dropped itself to the beginning of the grid inverter, and it's just about giving you 6-7 watts. So this is where we're standing at the moment, guys. We're running 300 RPM on the dynamo, probably about 200 on the wheel. It's going up to 26 volts now, and it's putting 6 watts into the grid. Yahoo! That is fucking brilliant. 6 watts. That's enough to light my fag. Okay, so we need to have a rethink, put more coils on it, change the resistors, block the holes, and move on up. But the generator is running quite nicely, but and this is in the delta, not the star, the delta. when I put it in the star, it gave me 70 volts. I switched the machine on and it stopped. So star configuration does not work on this motor. You've got to have it on the delta to give you the higher amps and lower volts. See? So there you go, guys. This is where we're standing at the moment. But the dynamo is working really, really well. The resistors, like I say, we've got 1 amp, well, 0.81 now at 229 volts, and we've got 1.89 on 12k, and that's not good. And if you look at the output, I'm putting 4 amps on this side at 15k, and I'm putting 4 amps on this side with 12k, and I'm using 2 amps over here and 1 amp over here. So the resistors have got to be changed. I'm upping them to 18k, and then, guys, we will see how we go. But as you can see, it's staying at steady 25.6. Now let me turn off the grid inverter, and you see now, there she goes. There is no load on this now. There is no load on the dynamo on this alternator, and it's going to go up to 42 volts now. There you go. The RPM's gone up. As soon as you put a load on it, the dynamo kicks in and drops to the beginning of the grid inverter of the 24-25 volt, and just giving you 6-7 watts. So there you go. There's another hurdle for you, Technomancer, our little master. The wheel is running beautifully now. Look, it's probably running at about let me do a quick. .450 RPM is the generator, producing 42 volts on the delta. The star and the three-phase connected together. I'm on the star, which is low volts, high amps. The grid inverter is off. As soon as I put a load on it, switch it on. There you go. So now it will drop right down to the beginning of the 24 volts, which is the start of the grid inverter, and it's going to stay there. So there you go. We have documented this. The next step is to move on and close the holes on the wheel, put 4 more coils, change the resistors from 12k to 18k from that side, and try and lower the amps, and then look at ways of increasing RPM. So there you go, guys. See, now we're running at 25 volts, producing about 6 watts. That's brilliant. That could light up a torch. That would be brilliant. You can light up a torch so that you can keep an eye on your machine at night. Fucking load of good days. Alright, guys. Thank you. Good luck to you all. And that's as far as I got. Ta-da.